love your enemy? To me, this seems kind of strange. How about you? Why would anyone want to love someone who doesn't really care for them? Good day. My name is Ryan Brown. I am 17 years old, and I'm a proud member of the Plainfield chapter of the New Jersey Orators. Today, my presentation comes from an excerpt of a sermon that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivers to his congregation in 1957. Dr. King, as we know, was one of the many who was extremely instrumental in the civil rights movement. This movement was fought to end both racial segregation and discrimination against African Americans so that we would have equal access to opportunities. However, before Dr. King became involved in the civil rights movement, he was a minister. And it is from his sermon, Loving Your Enemies, from which I will present to you today. Now I present an excerpt of the sermon, Loving Your Enemies, by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Over the centuries, many persons have argued that loving your enemy is an extremely difficult command. This command is an absolute necessity for the survival of our civilization. Jesus was very serious when he gave this command. He wasn't playing. He realized it is hard to love your enemies. He realized it is difficult to love those persons who seek to defeat you. Those persons who say evil things about you. He realized it was painfully hard. But he wasn't playing. He was serious. Now, I'm aware of the fact that some people will not like you. Not because of something that you have done to them, but just because they won't like you. Some people aren't going to like the way you walk. Some people aren't going to like the way you talk. Some people aren't going to like you because other people like you, and you're popular, and you're well-liked. They aren't going to like you. Some people aren't going to like you because your hair is a little longer than theirs, or your hair is a little shorter than theirs. Some people aren't going to like you because your skin is a little brighter than theirs. And other people aren't going to like you because your skin is a little darker than theirs. They are going to dislike you, not because of something that you have done to them, but because of the various jealous reactions and other reactions that are so prevalent in human nature. One thing that an individual must do in seeking to love his enemy is to discover the element of good in his enemy. And every time you begin to hate that person and think of hating that person, realize that there is some good there. And look at those good points, which will overbalance the bad points. Within the best of us, there is some evil. And within the worst of us, there is some good. When we come to see this, we take a different attitude towards individuals. The person who hates you most has some good in him. Discover the element of good in your enemy and place your attention there, and you will have a new attitude. It is not only necessary to know how to go about loving your enemies, but why we should love our enemies. I think the first reason that we should love our enemies, and I think it was at the very center of Jesus' thinking, is this. Hate for hate only intensifies the existence of hate and evil in the universe. For example, if I hit you, and you hit me, and I hit you back, and you hit me back, and so on, you see, that goes on endlessly. Somewhere, some somebody must have a little sense, and that's the strong person. The strong person is the person who's able to cut off the chain of hate and the chain of evil. And that's the tragedy of hate. It doesn't cut off. There is another reason why I think Jesus says, love your enemies. And it is that hate distorts the personality of the hater. You just begin hating somebody, and you begin to do things that don't make sense. You can't see straight when you hate. You can't walk straight when you hate. You can't stand upright. Your vision is distorted. For the person who hates, the good becomes bad and the bad becomes good. For the person who hates, the true becomes false and the false becomes true. That's what hate does. You can't see right. Now, there is a final reason why I think Jesus says, love your enemies. And it is that love has within it a redemptive power and the power to redeem and transform your enemies. That's why Jesus says, love your enemies. Because if you hate your enemies, you have no way to transform your enemies. But if you love your enemies, you will discover at the very root of love is the power of redemption. Here's the person who is a neighbor, and this person is doing something wrong to you. Just keep loving that person. Keep being friendly to them. Don't do anything to embarrass them. Just keep loving them. And they can't stand it too long. They'll react with bitterness because they're mad, because you love them like that. They'll react with guilt feelings, and sometimes they'll hate you a little more at that transition period. But just keep loving them. And by the power of your love, they will break down under the load. That's love, you see. It is redemptive. And that's why Jesus says, love your enemies. There is something about hate that tears down and is destructive. So love your enemies. This evening, as I look into your eyes and into all the eyes of my brothers and sisters in New Jersey and all over America and all over the world, I say to you, I love you. Once again,